Okay, what we're going to do today is bevel the leading and the trailing edges of the fins. I have this jig that my buddy made up. I have a table saw and I just put a composite blade on it, took the normal blade off. And how this works, it's roughly at about a 10-degree angle. This board here slides along the blade. It's adjustable in that it hose clamps to the table. You can angle your blade, so it's really adjustable. It takes quite a while of playing around with angles and how much, and all these scrap pieces I was playing with to get the right angle, and then you have to adjust it so that you leave enough of a edge on here. To figure out how much of an edge, you use a Sharpie. You can black that out. I'll come over and I'll show you that. After cutting the two bevels on this, is that you can barely see a black line on there, and that's how much I left along there. You can see that it's beveled it pretty good. So that tells me that it's all set up right. To attach the fins to this movable, call it a fence, is I'm using two-sided tape. Got it at the local hardware store. It looks like it's Duck brand. It's used for holding down carpet. It's really thin. So what we're going to do is put, once we figure out how we're going to do this, is we're going to put a couple of strips on here. And I haven't done this before at home. I always take it to my buddy's shop and interrupt his business to help me out. So this trip, he sent me home with the jig. And what this two-sided tape does is it keeps your fingers away from all the moving parts, anything that can be thrown out. I have a couple layers of tape on there. I'll end up putting this on here, making sure I'm angling what I want to angle. Getting the backing off this sometimes a little bit tricky. A razor blade comes in handy. Starting on a corner seems to work pretty good. Not having the shake seems to help some. Having good eyesight seems to help. So I'm going to go ahead and put this fence back on. I'm going to clean all the dust off so that the tape sticks. And I'll do a close-up on this once I've done a couple. I'm going to roll this up on here, making sure the point's at the starting point. Confirming that is the edge I want to cut. Pressing it down. So again, I'll do a close-up here once I do this one. So I'll pop this off and I'll come over and show you. Little screwdriver to get it off. Making sure I'm not going to break it. Tape holds really good. Really good. Come over to the camera. You can see how thin this tape is and how sticky it was. that this is the edge I just cut. There's a little bit of a swirl to it. I checked, it comes out pretty good. You can see how much I left. I'll mark this with a mark slot and show you a close-up. Okay, we have a little bit close-up here, putting on my hearing protection. You can see I have the blade tilted. This is at, I think it's 10 degrees. We have the fin taped on here. We're cutting the right edge. The fins down, I'll show you the jig. Now, I didn't make it, and so we'll go from there. I want to say it's probably at a 10-degree angle here. There's a little groove here for this part of the board to slide in. It's got this up here to follow. You put wax along here, and all you're doing is making a fence that'll slide along. And we tape the parts on here with two-sided tape. It's pretty thin stuff. It looks like it's made by Duck. It's like $5 a roll. Make sure you're doing the right side. I said I'd show you the edge of the fin after we cut them. Come around here. I don't know if you can see that black line on there. You see some swirls in here, but they're all very minor. I'll take a piece of 120 or 220 wet dry sandpaper. I'll hold this up to right angle and I'll kind of wet sand them. Be very careful because this can get really sharp. And we'll go from there. So fin jig, table saw with a composite blade on it. Kind of like a metal cutting chop saw blade. Took the normal blade off. My buddy actually has a 14 or 16 inch sander that this table goes on to. Use some hose clamps. You can probably get by with just doing some angled cuts, screwing this in and going from there. If you're doing a lot of scratch building rockets, something like this come in handy. What I used to do is I put a tape line on here and I would clamp this to the table with something on there, and I would take a file and I would file my leading edges and stuff. Got pretty old, pretty tiring, and so my buddy Steve's been doing this for me for a while. I borrowed this jig from him and did the fins.